Hello, lovers and friends. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, I'm here with the master of connection, business, and influence. You may or may not have been familiar with him, but at the end of this episode, you absolutely will be. This today, I have Richie Hecker. Richie Hecker is a businessman and investor and a self proclaimed master troll. You got to give it up to someone who claims that they're a master troll. He's known for his sharp insights into psychology, persuasion, and human connection. A supply chain innovator, a real estate investor, a pioneer in the digital transformational space, Richie is now exploring the future of tokenization, which could possibly include you. With a track record of building and scaling businesses, Richie previously ran a social network with 100 million users, served as the chief marriage officer on a dating site. I didn't even know that existed until I met Richie. And he's played a key role in shaping the NYC startup ecosystem. He's also the co founder of NYC Entrepreneur Week, and he's partnered with the city of New York to fuel innovation and growth in the entrepreneurial space. How incredible is that? He's also has his own expertise in bridging in psychology, business, and technology, which is why I wanted him on the show. He's now here with us this week to pull back the curtains on the white arts of behavioral psychology, teaching you how to build relationships, make deals, and connect with anyone. This is going to be a juicy episode if you are in the dating scene, if you are in the deals, in the entrepreneurship, or the tech space. And enough about me. Let's bring Richie onto the show. Welcome, Richie.
Welcome. Thanks, Josephina. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. When we met at a mutual friend's wedding, I think about a month ago, maybe about a month and a half ago, you came to the table and we started chatting about so many diverse and dynamic topics that at the end of our conversation, I told you that you were the most interesting person at this table and at the party. And I still stood by that. We had such a fascinating conversation, the way you're able to hold presence, and also your really unique dynamic background was someone that I felt like I really wanted to share with my audience and also hear more from. So thanks for being here. And that was super fun to get to know you then and to continue our friendship and our relationship here.
Yeah, yeah, that was an amazing experience. It was a wedding in paradise in Puerto Rico.
It
Uh,
was, yeah.
we
It
had
really,
that
really
little
was.
amazing time, little table hidden on the veranda right overlooking the beach, on the water's perfection.
It was. It was. And it still is. I mean, I'm here in
Yeah,
Puerto
you're
Rico.
here. I can only dream of being back there right now.
Well, you have an invitation to come back as well, to come on back. And I wanted to introduce yourself a little bit more in your words in, what's your interest and how did you essentially get involved with behavioral psychology? And before we go into any of the colors, I resonated with the fact that being in spiritual psychology myself, as well as Tantra has the different arts. We have white and pink and red and black. And I love that when we mentioned this conversation, there was a conversation on like the white arts of behavioral psychology. So before we even get into the different colors, I would love to know what was the interest for you in getting involved into behavioral psychology and how have you began to diversify that into the world of business and technology?
So I got started when I was really young. I was fortunate enough to be involved with some early technology startups almost 25 years ago. And they were all marketing, all advertising and marketing and technology. So the crux of all marketing is behavioral psychology. And as my career evolved, I kept getting brought into different types of projects. And what was consistent in most of them was at some point, well, it's the crux of any project, any relationship is behavioral psychology, whether it's how to capture your imagination on a podcast as a host or reader or listener or viewer, how to tell and craft a narrative, to tell a story,
Mm.
to bring people together. So that was consistent with my career. It was always marketing at focus. I produced events and conferences. I threw a ton of parties. I ran a social network. I ran marketing companies. And so at the end of the day, but even if it's even simpler than that, no matter what you're doing, every relationship is the underpinnings of that relationship is behavioral psychology. People call it different things. Some people will call it neurolinguistic programming. Some people will call it in a market setting behavioral economics.
Mm.
Some people will call it marketing, persuasion. If this is the 90s, people would call it pickup. It's the same thing. It's how do you create that connection and where do you go from here to there?
And for you, when you started that interest in it, right? And you mentioned even in pickup, which I loved because I was, I grew up in the 90s and 2000s, and that was a big thing out in Hollywood and LA. And,
Oh,
saying mystery, at the club arena back in the day was wild. And, a friend of mine actually married Neil Strauss. And so I've gotten to spend some time with him, the creator of the game. And, that was such a wild time back then to run the game and use pickup when it's, in dating. But I liked what you're saying here is like there's multiple ways of where you can use that game of pickup for good or for, your own benefit. And same thing with NLP, right? Like I've heard people mention with NLP that it can be used for good or it could be, used for manipulation. Same thing with marketing, right? And I
yeah,
like that you're tying all of that together. What was the step, Rick? I'm going to be in this advertising company. What was that?
it's a great question. We were running an advertising network. You had to bring together supply and demand. So banner ads on a website, an ad that you can show, and someone to buy the ad. So the simplest thing was reaching out to advertisers. How do you get an advertiser's attention? Saying, hey, David, I know you're selling widgets. You're selling these great Sharpies. I would like you to advertise on my website. So first, I have to get your attention. Then I have to get you to trust me. Then I have to get you to buy the ad. And then I have to help you design the creative to deliver that ad to the audience. So there's multiple layers of psychology in there because I have to first pitch you to trust me to say, I'm going to give you $1 to run the ad. And then it's the early days of the internet. I have to help you design the creative in order to do so. That's the simplest way I'd say to look at it. So it might just be, how do you design the subject line of an email? That a cold email might work. And there are a lot of different techniques that have been really effective for that before. Then get someone on the phone. How do you go from a phone to sending someone a wire that you've never met or a payment? That's hard. Then you have to actually develop the creative for the end user. And that's the same thing all over again, but a consumer sale versus a B2B sale, which is even more difficult than a B2B sale. So that was my first experience. You had to design the entire framework, sometimes creatives, sometimes getting the customers together. And it's all narrative at the end of the day. It's delivery and narrative. Those are the two big components.
Delivery and narrative. That works for if you're going to do a talk or you're going to do an
Yeah.
event or you're going to do a podcast or you're going
Mhm.
to advertise to someone. So when you say delivery and narrative, what do you find makes a delivery hot and irresistible and let's say magnetic to where the person would
Oh,
let's lean in and convert or flat? Just curious.
I'll give you an example of both.
Yes.
So we're going to start with flat. Hi.
Hi.
I, I'm, listen, you're amazing. I saw you yesterday on, hi, I'm Richie. What did I just do there? First of all, I slouched my shoulders down before, and I looked down right away. I went from like stable body language to movement. My shoulders went from leaning in and straight to down and away. I
Mm,
mean, web cameras always have issues with eye contact, so you kind of lose a little bit of the nuance of eye contact. But I looked away and down. I could have looked
yes.
up, down. And then I mumbled before I said anything, and I said something in a I'll call it a held back voice, which
Mm,
is like, leaning back instead of leaning in.
mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I just fucked up that relationship in like 3 seconds. You don't, I mean, it's a low status way to introduce someone.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's redo that again.
And for those that were not watching, I would invite you to go like watch this actually on YouTube if you're just listening to this on audio to see this like real time example. Because I noticed the thing that I noticed the most was you looking down, body language, and looking away. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That was what I
Yeah.
noticed right away. And then let's bring it into like magnetic, hot, opposite of flat.
Well, first I'm going to lean in and say, you're Josephina. I've been waiting to meet you. You know why? Come, we'll talk about it. That's it.
Notice the difference.
So I leaned in, my shoulders were straight. Instead of moving my body forward like loopy, I simply just moved my entire shoulders forward in one motion. If we were in person, I would have looked you in the eyes on a slight angle. As I said that, I would have kept about 18 inches of distance, roughly. You want to be close, but not too close. And I hesitated, but while looking in your eyes, and I acknowledged you and said, I've been waiting to meet you, which is not like, hi, I've been following you. That's kind of creepy. Sorry, followers. It's true. When you call yourself a follower, it's by default creepy. Uh, but I also, by using the language of waiting to meet you, I took a high status language there, right? So following you is low status. It's like I'm looking up to you. I call it the podium effect. If you ever talk to a speaker after a conference, if they're on a raised podium, the speaker, the psychological design of an event where someone's on a podium is unfortunately the speaker doesn't respect you in the audience. It's not intentional. I mean, sometimes it is intentional. Not about you. It's about the fact that there's literally a status difference between raised up and lower down. So what I would simply do here is I would use language. I'm waiting to meet you. So that means I'm taking control of the situation versus I'm following you. And then I leaned in. I smiled for a second. I looked you in the eyes. I stopped and froze what I said. I'm waiting to meet you. And I said, you know why? Come over here. So then I pulled you. And as soon
Mm-hmm.
as you take one step towards her, game over.
Mm.
Now you're following me. So very subtle differences. It's all about how you, but the most important thing was presence. So I'm being present and calm. So before we started this podcast, Josephina did something amazing. Took me back many years. She did a directed meditation with me to breathe in, breathe out. Most amazing way to ground yourself and center is a couple of deep directed breaths, like you go into a yoga class or a meditation circle or a Reiki circle. You're able to engage your breath, but what that does is it grounds you. And I'm using flowery language, but you hold presence when you're grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone feels you being there. You're rooted into the ground.
Yes.
Really powerful. So starting off like that, that's what I was thinking in the beginning. It's like that is an amazing way to start. Also, I'm following you as the leader, getting me to take the breath. So I'm naturally going to follow you for the next 45 minutes or an hour. It was really well. Plus, it was very relaxing. One of the other things that I have done is I'm actually a yoga instructor also. I've spent many, many times doing that same technique. It's actually how I met my wife. But that's another story to really direct people to breathe. And once you are in that frame of breathing with somebody, you can play with that connection so effectively, as you know, and as I'm sure your listeners and followers know. Being in that space with someone when they're following you up close, your heart rate, your breath, it can be in rhythm. That's the most powerful dynamic you can really have with somebody. So on a completely off
Yes.
topic for a second,
Yes.
uh, but
which is
one
which
little
is which is tantra, right? It's like it is
yeah,
the connection and the union with yourself, but another in the moment, to meet the
yeah,
moment, to sync up, to be in unified field. Like that's one of the pillars and the foundations of doing tantric work, regardless of being in or out of the bedroom. It's a
yeah.
philosophy and a way of being, in life. And all of my community members and people who are in my community, are interested in all of that, as well as like what you're saying here, right? Embodiment is what I would use versus body language, because what you're speaking about is how to use your physical vessel and to embody the qualities of which you're wanting to emanate or share with that person or invite that person into.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But whether I'm trying to meet someone at a party and looking for a date, or a sensual experience or going to a networking event. The same psychology or technology of building that connection is exactly the same. The steps you go through is exactly the same. Some differences in terms of how status works in different environments. You can get away with certain things in different environments. It's harder to do in other environments, but the underlying mechanics are exactly the same. One of the things I used to do when this is going back 15 years ago, and I stopped doing this for a while because the world got too sensitive for the last few years. And everyone, the world seemed to have lost its sense of humor and lost its sense of sensuality. And everything became Me Too, cancel, get lost. For anyone that feels speaks how they're feeling. That's how I would frame it.
It's a good way to frame it. I would say I agree, and I've experienced that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say you're standing next to someone at a bar and you're able to sync your breath work like what we had done. All you need to do is simply play with distance in someone's hands while syncing your breath, and the other person's going to feel like they're in love with you. You play with the connection between your and heart rate interconnection points, and that's when you get the flutters in your stomach when someone's like, "Whew." Yeah, it works so powerfully in a dating setting, in a business setting. I mean, the lines often blur and cross, but you can just take that one step back, and then you now have someone that's following you that's hearing your pitch. You may not want to make them fall in love with you, but you want to make them fall in love with what you're doing.
Good distinction, right? Really good distinction as well. That's my question earlier was around how to not have it be flat where it's irresistible, right? Where they're like
Yeah,
magnetically leaning in, which essentially does create that feeling of I'm in love with that person or I'm in love with that
yeah,
idea. Like it's essentially when you're in love with, there's an openness, there's a receptivity, there's a warmth, there's a curiosity that tends to come
yeah,
with those, sensations of love and loveliness.
exactly.
Well, I was going to say you were mentioning like breaking down kind of like the steps and the mechanics, and we're talking about, let's say, dating because people obviously in my community are all about love and sexuality, but also about entrepreneurship and building their businesses, or I would say also in a way like dancing their dance, in the world of being seen, being big, being inspirational and influential in their own way. And what we're talking about is, of course, the dating component, but I know that as we spoke as well, there's a way to also master it. Again, I know from the tantric perspectives, I'm curious from more of like you're mentioning the behavioral psychology, like the art of this in the everyday, because tantra is an art and a philosophy, of course, and energy, working with energy is an art form. How would someone be able to kind of break down the steps of what you're mentioning with this from the behavioral psychology perspective? As I heard you saying, there is it works every time if you break it down and in an everyday situation.
The most important thing to start is presence. That means you have to feel like you belong where you are. Hold your ground, stand still. If this was in person, I would show you my body language where my legs would be apart, not crossed. My arms would be down by my side, not crossed. So straight, presence, shoulders, calm, confident. Once you have presence, presence includes being confident. It includes believing you belong where you are right now. The right only place in the universe you're supposed to be is where you are right now.
Mm,
You need to have that in mind. You go into any environment. If you don't believe you're supposed to be there, nobody else does either.
mm, yes,
Yeah.
yes. What does someone tell themselves if they don't have it? Just what you said, that affirmation there.
I'm Don't use tricks. Don't use tricks like alcohol in order to create that presence to belong there. You want to just really say, I belong here. Let's have a good time. Say hi to somebody. And the first person you can say hi to, let's say you're at an event, is the registration desk person. At a
Mm-hmm.
bar, it's the bartender. It's a very low risk first step. I belong here. Hi. How are you doing today? Wait for a response. That's it. Hi.
Beautiful.
How are you doing today?
How would that translate if it's an online space? Just curious.
So there's a few tricks actually. One is yes, get onto video, say so and say, hey, how are you doing? I'd love to take a minute and hear where you're from. I know it's a Zoom call. Joseph, you want to take 30 seconds and tell me what you're about?
Yeah, that's great. I'm all about love and sex and psychology and tantra and embodiment. And I love dance and nature. And I live on an island and I'm happy to be here.
It's amazing. You simply exude exactly what you're saying. I can feel it through the screen.
Thank you.
Uh, you're welcome. So now let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. How
Yeah,
about
let's get
that?
into it.
Yeah. So that works. Chat room psychology. Let's say you're in a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group and you're a bunch of new people in there. What you want to do is when you first join the group, usually there's a notice to the other people, there's a new person that joined. Use it. Make a few comments early on. Be one of the more active posters initially so everybody knows who you are. Then you can dial it back over time. Make your presence known. Like I'm master of anytime I join a new WhatsApp group, if I really want to be in it, I will automatically see what's going on and I'll try to make funny comments and like I'll look for typos that I can make fun of people on. There's some risk to it, right? You could go too far sometimes, but everybody in that group will know who I am really fast. And
That's
I've
a really
used
good
this,
point.
I've trolled entire industries using this technique. I've trolled entire cities using this technique. It's really effective. And there's a few keys to it. One is you can tease people out. It's like make like if someone makes a post, just add one funny comment to it. Same way you can tease someone if you meet them at a friend's house. You can make a comment on their shoes or their hair or their bonnet, something simple, something innocuous. You can tease and play with it. Very important. Teasing. It's a lost art the last 4 years. Everybody's just
Mm.
looking at their phone the whole time and like pretending and not being present. And then you like say something clever and they're offended because they only heard half of what you were saying because they were too busy being yelled at on their phone by someone on a video they're watching. With that said, everyone watch this podcast.
That's hilarious. Yes.
But it's true. If you are watching this podcast, you too are experiencing the same thing. I just hope you're watching this together with somebody in the same room versus like in the same room on separate screens. Yeah.
Or at least sharing. Yeah. Sharing what you're inviting someone into the
Yeah.
experience.
So there's a lot of these little techniques that you can use when you're in new environments to establish presence early. You can, once you've established presence, it's much easier to go backwards and calm than go forwards and establish presence later. It's way harder. It's like, the first day let's say you're in college, the first day on campus, it's so easy to meet people. By day 30, everyone's burned out and everyone's guard is up. So first day, introduce yourself to everybody in sight and just walking up to someone and saying, "Hello, how are you doing? Come join my group here. Hey, I'm here with one." That's important of having a wingman going someplace because if you go with one person, no matter how charismatic you are, no matter how smooth you are, you still have to create that chemistry with at least one other person.
Mm.
And until you have that second person, you're the most charismatic person in the world talking to yourself. And then you're like a rando in the corner, like yelling at the Union Square. Doesn't matter. So it takes two to be engaged. It takes three to start a movement. So ideally, you have three people in a group. That's the ideal size. But if you have two, you can just invite someone over into your group. And now you have a trend. You have a movement. You now have an exalted position of status. I've used this technique in a lot of different environments. An example was I was at a party a number of years ago. I was with a girl I was dating. I was with another friend of ours, and there were some other people standing there awkwardly on the side. I walked over to them. I was dressed a little bit differently. Just always want to stand out just a little bit.
Hmm.
So, and I went over to them and said, "Hi, why don't you come join us? Come engage with us for a moment." And the girl went and looked at her friend and looked over, and I said, "Not now. I'll come talk to you guys later." And I said, "All right, I'm gonna go back. Have a good time." I just confidently walked away. And then a couple hours later came by and then got a tap on the shoulder. And she just came and said hello. And we
Mm.
ended up having a lovely evening. And it just really comes down to just literally approaching with confidence, stand out a little bit. So if you went back to the days of Neil Strauss and pickup, they went too far, in my opinion. You didn't need leather pants, platform boots, and a freaking fedora like 7 feet high. Unnecessary. It works, but it gets you over to the dark side of when you're like have the rock star kind of mentality to it. It's good if you want to be a cult leader or a rock star, But if you're really just trying to create connection, you want to have to stand out just a little bit. So maybe it's just a little hat. If you're a girl, maybe it's a cool pair of shoes. I ran into a friend of mine in Grand Central yesterday. I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. She had this like eye mask she turned into, it looked like a crown. It was just her sleeping mask. Turn it inside out, it looked like a crown. And I saw her in Grand Central from across. I was actually on the phone with my wife at the time. I'm like, honey, I think I saw Vanessa. She's like, go talk to her. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm like, all right. So I go there. I wait. She's talking to some friend of hers in the middle of Grand Central, and I just stop. And I just stop. And I just wait for her to acknowledge me. Right. So if you go over and you break someone's frame, you can create a pattern interrupt and you break their frame. But if you do it too aggressively, you're offending the other person that doesn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stood there and I waited. She then gave me a big hug, started talking for a moment, and then I introduced myself to her friend. So instead of like talking, stop and chat for like, I think it was Seinfeld would call it, for like 10 minutes, I actually ended up talking to her friend for like 20 minutes in the middle of Grand Central. And then Vanessa was playing on her phone for a moment. And then he had to go and I spent another 10 minutes hanging out with her.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot of, all it was is me waiting and having presence and being confident to wait for their conversation to have a pause and then acknowledging, giving her a hug. So that's status. And then introducing myself to the other guy who's also a tech entrepreneur, super fascinating guy, really crazy stories. And like, completely undersold himself. It was amazing. It was super fun. I'm like, this is awesome. There's a lot of psychology to that. So one is I walked slowly over. I saw her. I stood still in presence. I waited her to then acknowledge my presence there by being still. Then she gave me the hello instead of me pulling her. So that's a very high status thing for anyone else around, which means if I'm now friendly, the other people in that environment will trust me more, or at least want to engage with me, not think I'm just some rando in the Grand Central trying to like hit on the girl that's standing in the middle of Grand Central. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because that if you're all rushy and pulley, that's how you come off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just an old friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a few years. So
Mm-hmm.
works really effectively. And I met a really interesting person out of that. I got to catch up with an old friend. I just held presence. And then I waited. I tease it out. This is when I'm calm. This is just what I naturally do. It is a persuasion technique because I'm just aware of my body language, but it's not like a manipulation technique. And where a lot of the pickup people went is you can use these techniques as a form of connection. You can also use them as a form of non-aligned agenda. So I want to take something from you versus I want to do something with you or give something to you. Uh,
Mm.
that's where it goes too far. Like, is it seduction or persuasion? Is it seduction or is it instead just alignment?
I would even say, is it seduction or is it manipulation? Because I think seduction is also a really beautiful art form that
Yes.
goes again into like the heart of giving a person an experience as well as yourself. I would say like the darker side from my perspective is when the seduction turns into a manipulation where it's not about the we or how to create a shared mutually beneficial
Yeah.
experience when it's just simply focused on a singular focus of, like you said, I'll say not a divinely aligned agenda, right? Not an aligned agenda
Yes.
together.
Yes. Exactly. And if you're going for a divinely aligned agenda, you don't need as many tools. You don't need as many like crazy things going on. You don't need as many pattern interrupt. You need one. You need one thing that's a pattern interrupt. When you stop someone's frame and you reframe them on something else to pull their attention, you need one thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
used to have this. I did a lot. I still do a lot of work in the cryptocurrency world. I have a ring I bought by a museum many years ago that is a old Maccabean coin turned into a ring. It's a 2,000-year-old ring. I used to wear this whenever I'd go to a crypto event because I'm wearing a token on my hand, literally a coin that turned into something else that holds perceived value. And I'd always make sure that like I would talk with my hands. So one small simple thing. I mean, girls do this with engagement rings all the time. That's like at least half the purpose of an engagement ring. There you go. Yeah.
And
Oh, look at
jewelry,
my
we do
ring.
we do it
Yeah.
with jewelry. We do it. we do it with clothes, we do it with fashion, we do it with makeup, and there's ways that we can use it to like adorn ourselves to stand out because we feel really good. And there's a way that we can also do it as a way to manipulate a whole room to be the center of attention, which could come from insecurities, which would be again a personal gain to feel like you're worthy and
Yeah.
value. Or there's I think it was it Coco Chanel, or I forgot which one, don't quote me on it, for the big fashionistas, but there's always one I thought was Chanel, which is take off one item before you leave the house. Like the idea also of like the most confident ones, like you're saying, are the ones that don't need the most in order to be the most persuasive or effective or impactful, because it's more in the confidence and the awareness of their psychology of
Yes.
how they're showing up and the energy of which they're giving in the delivery.
Exactly. Listen, I have a Sharpie in my hand here. Let's see if it's in screen. I can do this with a Sharpie. Let's say I'm going to an event, just a cocktail party, a business event, a pitch event, whatever you want. All I need is this Sharpie. What I'm going to do is simply walk up to you and say, "Hi, can you hold this for a moment?" And I just gave you my Sharpie. Now, a few things happen. One, I now have your attention. Two, you just did me a favor. So reciprocity. Three, you're thinking, what the hell is this guy doing giving me a Sharpie? I don't
That's what I
understand
would be
why I'm
thinking.
holding
I'm like,
this.
what's going on? Yeah.
But now you're thinking about me. You're thinking about the interaction. I've broken the frame of whatever the track is in your head. And now I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to see if you would take the Sharpie. I'm Richie. Nice to meet you. Thank you for engaging with me. And now tell me about yourself.
I like that a lot because it makes it a game versus a manipulation, because immediately you said what the intention was, why you did it. You gave gratitude for them engaging, right? And quote unquote, taking the bait without it being about, power or significance over the other person. And that's where I think, again, this is really an art form, what we're talking about. There's a lot of
Yeah.
nuances that we've talked about. But to me, this is a very clear nuance between something that's like a white art form versus like a dark or a black art form, right? Is some of the transparency or authenticity around it, would you say that is a big piece?
Yeah. I used to call it the theory of positive manipulation. When I can do something to engage you, that you can come along with me on my journey and we can come our journey together. Versus like dark arts of seduction or manipulations, I'm trying to get you to do something that I want. I'm trying to raise it's like a scammer might do this to try to get you to give them money to invest and steal from you.
Mm,
Or why pickup got a dirty word is like, it's not trying to like create a real connection. You're just trying to get someone to go home with you and then never call them again or be
yeah.
a, so. But if you have a positive manipulation, but really, it's really alignment.
I think
When
that's the key word, because I also know some guys who are cool in the tech space and in the crypto
yeah,
space. Obviously, we don't say any names on the show, but I'm familiar with them, and I've seen them do this kind of transformation to create more perceived value in themselves beyond just their portfolio to the dating world, which to the dating world, of course, it's great that you are successful and you have, money and things like that. However, a lot of women now, and I'm very happy that so many women have woken up to, women's rights and making their own money. And, actually a good percentage of women make more money than men do actually in some of these modern relationships. It's really started to shift. And so women are actually asking for and summoning more than just the financial security in the bank account. They're actually wanting real, deep, authentic connection, because they're knowing that the money in the bags are not actually going to give them the orgasm of their lives, or, give them an experience of deep feeling of nourishment and worshipment and surprise and admiration that will, be a love that lasts a lifetime. And I love that for the ladies. Like, yes. And I love the men that are like stepping up for that. And I can't help but to also notice men who've been successful in the tech or the finance world who were less desirable physically have even today in 2025 started to create this more perceived value with like the clothes and the fashion and like taking these kind of like supermodel-y looking photos of them on the boats and the yachts and things like that, but have also now started to pick up doing the pickup game, and actually how it's kind of coming back around, as you've said earlier, like the world was really sensitive, but I'm noticing this kind of trend in this department of guys kind of going back to some of this pickup to feed their own, insecurities and create not only this perceived value of them as like a guy who meditates, and he like paid for a meditation studio to do a photo shoot to look like he meditates because women find that valuable, and that's social proof because he's in a studio, versus like the authenticity that just is missing, that doesn't translate to like the human connection for a long-term relationship that really really lasts.
Yeah. So the thing about the cryptocurrency is the entire world of what cryptocurrency is 100% behavioral psychology. So if you learn how to design a cryptocurrency, a token, you're good if you're good at it, if you've created something that shot the moon or whatever you want to call it, you know what behavioral psychology, you know what we're talking about right now. Those arts can be used for good. They could also be used to uh, to do a rug pull and for evil. It's very easy to the line there blurs when you understand the psychology of markets. I actually wrote a chapter in a best-selling book once where we proved what we called token economic theory in one dinner party.
I
Just
read that
by
article. Yeah, I read that article. That was really cool. Actually, go ahead. You want to share a little bit about that?
I'll share the story, and it was a really fun dinner that everyone can replicate on their own. And so this was written. I became a chapter in an Amazon bestseller. It was written about an observer by an Emmy award-winning writer, uh, just talking about the experience and what we called it. So it was a Friday night dinner, and I'm Jewish, so it was a Shabbat dinner, and we called it the Shabbat coin dinner. This is in the middle of 2017 and the height and peak of crypto at that point in time. Things were not as crazy as today, but it was for that moment in time, it was something. And I invited 12 people over, 12 friends. They were all people that either were fun to play games with, or they were something to do with crypto, or like friends of ours, which are usually people that are fun to play games with.
Like my
Uh,
friends.
yes, like your friends too. I'm sure you probably know some of the people that were actually at that dinner. Uh, I don't remember everyone. I should have taken a photo or something, but so I'm the opposite of what you described for your photo room and the meditation retreat. I've forgotten most of the stuff that I've done, and I have no recollection of it. And I remember stuff years later. I'm like, huh, I might have actually coined the term online influencer, and I forgot for about 20 years because it's off topic for a second, but one of my friends was one of the first large Twitter users. He was one of the investors there. And he was in my office one day and he's telling me he has 100,000 followers on Twitter. And I'm like, that's amazing. You're like a media company. You're like an influencer. And I started calling him that around New York City. And
Oh
he's
my
like, I
God.
guess I am. And I texted him the other day joking. I'm like, hey man, hey Jeff, I think we may have together coined the term online influencer. He's like, what are you talking about? And I reminded him of the story and he's like, huh, LOL. Uh, so
Yeah, someone's got to walk around like a dictation and like capture all the genius. Sometimes it's hard to track all the genius that comes out of people.
I mean, it's hard to stay on. Like you have to be conscious of the memory of, it's taking the photo, sharing the photo. I tended to be, I've been a public figure at times, and I've been a private figure at times, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. It just for the last 4 years, I wasn't comfortable in the public eye because it was just too negative, and who wants to roll in the mud all? Some people like rolling in the mud all day long. It's not for me. But now I'm feeling like the environment is more friendly and open and like weird again, which is great.
Yeah, we
Um,
like we like weird. We
like
like
weird.
we like weird. We like it weird. We like it different. We like
Yeah.
it free. Yeah.
So back to the dinner party. 12 people. I said, hey guys, we're about to do something completely not kosher. I because for those who don't know, if you're Jewish in Shabbat, you're not supposed to use money on Shabbat. You're not supposed to do any. It's a time of peace, a time of calm, a time of putting your phones away. So I opened it up and said, we're going to say the blessing on the challah, and then, which is the bread you would ceremonial bless and eat.
Mm.
And then we're going to do something, may not be that kosher, but we're going to have an experiment. How about that? So if you're not comfortable with this experiment, you got to leave now. So everyone's like, I'm going to stay. It's cool. I don't think anyone was religious there, but it doesn't matter. So I did the what we called the initial dinner offering at the time. I had some airport chocolate, the chocolates that have liquor in it in the bottles you buy for like $20 at the airport. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a limited supply of these things. I got like 20 of them. We're gonna have an experiment here, and we're gonna see if we can what happens if we can prove economic theory and create a market inside of a dinner on something that has limited value. The value in this at most is $1 per piece or 50 cents a piece, whatever they actually cost. There's no way it's worth more than that unless someone will pay more than that.
Mm.
So I'm going to auction off the first one. I'm only auctioning off one at a time. You can bid anything you want. So the first Shabbat coin sold for a red tie. And then my now wife, she was going around. I called her being the market maker, going around trying to like push everyone to bid or buy and get engaged with the market, running around tapping everyone on the shoulder. So it started off with trading for a red tie. Then we did this next one. Then I'm going to auction the next one. What will people pay for this? I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say one sold for $20 in cash. Then the red tie found itself on a secondary market, and people started trading that too.
The secondary market.
Yeah. Then I auctioned another one, and we did other games and other ways to sort of like show value. And then someone ate one, so now you have a diminishing supply.
Oh, they ate one.
Yeah.
Ah.
So over 3 hours, we launched it for a tie. Then it traded out to cash. It spiked up, I don't know, let's say from $20 to $60, whatever it is. Then it crashed back down to two. Someone robbed the bank where I stored all the reserves.
Did they eat it? Did they rob it and take it, or did they rob it and eat it? I'm curious.
It's a great question. I honestly don't remember.
No worries. I love asking these random questions because I literally sparks my curiosity.
Some of them were, yes, some of them were actually eaten. Yeah. Some of them were totally eaten. Someone else tried to gamble and like figured out ways to get tokens from everybody else and take all of the coins. So he would like trick people. He would trade them for other things. He like hustled the whole room. And so the bank was robbed. Someone else hoarded all of the supply and tried to spike the price. It spiked up 300%. It crashed to the ground. Once they were all robbed, I had to introduce an alternative currency, which was a different kind of chocolate because I had no more chocolate to offer. So I introduced a different currency, and then that established value in the market, even though it did create inflation because now you have two different competing currencies that technically could have been the same, could have been different. I don't know. We had
Mm.
gambling. I had a pool table. We had gambling. We had bank robbery. At one point, three people disappeared into a bathroom, and one of them came out with more tokens. Uh,
This sounds like a fun
oh,
party. This
it
sounds like
was
a fun Friday night.
Yeah, it was amazing. 3 hours. The behavioral psychology. So why did that work? So if you're in Puerto Rico and in crypto, that might be an interesting story for how do you make a market, right? And the behavioral psychology of that was a few things. One, I was the host and I introduced the currency, so I had exalted status, and I invited people to play in my game. Everybody there had a chance to leave. If you're in an investment setting, right, it's like, hey, um, thank you for coming to this event. We're talking here. I'm going to share something with you. If you're not looking to do a deal, you can leave right now. Might not be for you to stay any longer. But if you're looking for an experience, an opportunity, then by all means stay. Be my guest. So now
Mm.
I gave you a chance to leave. And it was my event. I introduced the coin. I also disclosed risk factors because this was not kosher. It was trading for value on Shabbat. So I did have full disclosure of risk factors. Yeah, that's true. Uh,
Hmm.
but I didn't make the market, right? I was the auctioneer, but my wife went around kind of like needling everyone, poking everyone. Hey, you guys should get some Shabbat coins. How many do you have? Tell me about it. What would you do for one? And she bothered everybody in the room until everybody got in their head that they need to play the game or engage in this case, just play a game, but it could be if you're working on a startup, you want to have one other person in the audience that's going around selling your book, so to speak. That's saying, I'm doing it. You should do it. It's good. It's really good. Kind of making the market, so to speak. And
Mm.
then, And then I would come back and from time to time, like just hold presence and auction off another coin.
Would that person also be kind of like, let's say, investment or even like, let's say, in an online space for entrepreneurs or coaches, like social proof in some way that like this works or people want it? Or is that the same?
Exactly. So we're going to get back after the story. We're going to go to the 3 steps everyone can do to learn these white
Yeah, I
art
just was
secrets.
wondering when you were saying that. Yeah. So it's another way to say also like social proof. She's like, I'm doing it, you should do it. I'm doing it. Like it's good, right? So it's a
Yeah.
way to egg that person on. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way to do it. It's very hard to establish social proof yourself because that's you it's very difficult to do. You
Yeah.
can do it. It's very hard. That usually means you're somewhat notorious or well known to begin with, or you have status that people know. It's humble bragging. It's other stuff you can do, but it's not nearly as effective in someone else just saying, "Hey, Josephina's podcast is amazing. You should be on the show." It's the only place on the internet you're going to learn about the white arts of seduction, the sensuality of tantra, and understand how and why that is related to helping your startup get off the ground.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, so this is the only place you can do that.
The only place.
Yeah. So that was the story. It was 3 hours long. And some of the market maker, my wife was the market maker. She was the one that was creating liquidity in the market. And that was the really valuable. That's why it worked. Like I introduced the item and I sold the story, I created the narrative, but then you need someone else, ideally someone else that then makes the market and gets people to feel comfortable playing or introducing social proof.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a couple of examples of this, but let me tell you the secret pattern first. We've started down this path several times, but this has been such a great conversation. We've gone off on many forks in the road on this call.
We have, yes.
So first is holding presence. Presence just means looking at your person, taking a deep breath, believing and knowing you're supposed to be there and saying hello. Approach with confidence, presence. If you do that, everything else is easy. If you don't have that, everything else is hard. So that's the dividing line. 3 steps, 3 steps, 3 steps. First, you want to separate the person from the present. So if you're at a networking event, I don't want to add the first question I'm going to ask you is not why are you here? Maybe it's what inspires you today. Where would you like to be right now? What are your dreams? Or what would you like to accomplish here? That's fine. Not why are you here? Not where do you work? Where do you work? The guard's up. It's just a transactional question. But it's like, what would you like to accomplish here?
Mm.
If I can introduce you to any one person in the room, what would that person look like? So I established myself as high status. I also engaged you in dream state. If this is in a dinner party or a wedding, it just might just be what's inspiring you tonight? Or what are your dreams? It's very similar. The questions you can do are very similar, but you want to
Mm-hmm.
separate the person from their present. Or in a business setting, it's separate the person from their current product or their current company. And it's just really simple because your guard is up when you're talking about what you are present to right
Mm-hmm.
now. But as soon as you're in dreaming, imagining, then your guard is down and you're just imagining shit. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
So that step one. And just one question. Pick your question that you can get someone into a dream state. And they will appreciate this so much because you're getting people to talk. Like, Josephina, what's inspiring you today?
Learning something new with you today and getting to reconnect and making art. That's what's inspiring me today.
And making amazing art. I'm so glad that I can contribute to your art project.
Thanks. It's fun. It's good to
Yeah.
co-create.
Yeah. So let's take a step over here for a second. Let's go get a drink. So I just did a second step on that. I got you to move. The same exact thing with the Sharpie. I just take one step to the left. You don't need to go across the street to a new venue. Just take one step to the left. We engaged. I got into your imagination state, and it's a pattern. It's another type of pattern interrupt or breaking your frame by getting you to literally break your frame. Hold
Mm.
something, move something. It could just be give me a high. Can I have a high five?
Mm-hmm.
Simple, simple fix.
Phew.
Step number 2, deliver perceived value. You said this earlier as well. Perceived value. This is the hardest part, by the way, Because this you have to figure out what is the perceived value of the other person.
Mm.
Now, first of all, if you got someone into a dream state, they might have told you what they value. Might have told you, well, I'm here to find a new client for something, or I'm have a startup, I want to pitch it, I need to raise money for it, or I just, I want to make a friend, or it's New York, dating sucks. I don't know. Like, figure out what someone's perceived value is by asking them questions, and you need to deliver perceived value to them. So, I got you in your dream state. You're telling me about your startup, and you say you need to meet, XYZ for a biz dev client, or you want to meet this type of investor, or whatever that might be. And I'll be like, all right, listen, you're gonna call me next week. Call me on Tuesday, and I will. I have a friend I'm gonna introduce you to. I want to at least set up a conversation. No guarantees it goes anywhere, but I'm going to put you in front because I know he's interested in the type of things that you're interested in.
Mm.
I delivered a point of perceived value. Another thing could be, hey, I'm really thirsty. Oh, yeah, let me get you a glass of water.
Mm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
someone looks like if someone's at a bar, again, like people don't really drink anymore, so this is less relevant. But if you were at a bar
In
before
LA,
and you,
people drink all the time. And in New York, I still know many people that do, but you can also do a tea or it could be at
yeah,
someone's house. And there are other ways, yeah, to do. It could be at an event, which people go to a lot
yeah.
of events.
So then people drink.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. So I was at a bar in San Francisco like 20 years ago. In the middle of the bar, there was this girl in this like gorgeous white dress. She was probably 4 inches taller than me, and she was like the girl in the dress in the middle of the beautiful, stood out like nothing, like a sore thumb. And she's standing there next to her friend, who's just normal. And so, but they were in the middle of the room in a bar, in an underground bar in San Francisco, just standing there and not holding, and they had nothing in their hands. So I just went to the bar. I bought one glass of champagne. I walked up to the girl in the white dress, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Richie. Can you give this to your friend?" And I gave the girl in the white dress a drink to give to her friend, and I ended up talking to the girl in the white dress for the next 45 minutes. I delivered value because first of all, I delivered value to her friend. That gets to me to the third point, and I teased. And I got the girl in the white dress in a dream state, like, who's this random guy giving me a drink that's like much shorter than me? But then I didn't give her a drink. I asked her to do me a favor of reciprocity and give a drink to her friend. And then I ended up talking to both of them, and I ended up talking to the girl in the white dress for 45 minutes. And so there's a few interesting parts of psychology there. I did the pattern interrupt, but if you buy someone a drink at a bar, it's a terrible pattern interrupt normally because it's too expected. But so that's why I had her take the drink I bought to give to her friend. So she's like, "What are you talking to? Who? What's going on?" They both got a pattern interrupt because her friend wasn't used to getting attention because the girl in the
Mm-hmm.
white dress was the one getting all the attention, and she wasn't used to being a delivery mechanism for drinks to her friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I pattern
Mm-hmm.
interrupted both of them. So that was one example. In a business setting, I did this yesterday actually. I was meeting with some people. I had a friend of mine I wanted to catch up with. He's working on a really interesting venture. The guy is like super interesting, very successful, built an iconic intellectual property that everybody would know if I mentioned. And I just wanted to see him because he wanted to catch up. And I wanted to see my other friend downtown who worked all the way down. I'm like, I need to choose a location nearby. One of the friends chose a location, and she's a fascinating person, like super interesting, crazy stories, everything. Person you want definitely. Both of these are people you want to have at a dinner party. Super interesting. No, both of them are super connected and weird. Lots of weird, funny, crazy shit that they've done. So I have one of them, and I had them both meet me at the bar. So I'm the coffee bar. So one of them, I'm like talking for half an hour. Then all of a sudden, the other one shows up. She brings her friend, who's also super interesting. And I just said, like, you guys need to meet. I felt like you guys should connect. And we spent like a half hour, 45 minutes hanging out. Turned out they'd actually met before through one of my friends that I think I may have introduced both of them to in the first place. Who knows? Interesting people tend to find each other.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I added perceived value there because I know they're both looking to meet interesting people for different things.
Right.
They both happen to be single, so who knows? One was raising money for something, the other is super connected in really weird places. So who knows what happens? But I added a line of perceived value to both of them, and it was a good time. I just had a nice time. So it's all positive. Call it the white arts. Now we get to the
Mm-hmm.
third point of this: support with social proof. So what is social proof? Social proof just means it's external validation for you belong where you are. Now, You have fancy versions of social proof, which is like you're something like you're so the other person might think you're someone they can get something from. I can take someone on a good experience. There might be an investor if you're raising money, but the simplest form of social proof is external validation that you belong where you are. The simplest sense. Now, if you're at a party or an event, I would always go to events where I knew the host. I was spoiled, I guess, because I was an event host. I knew lots of hosts. I'd always go there and I always go to the host and I'd say, hey, Dave, John, whatever, introduce me to the most interesting person here. Who do I need to meet? And I'd have the host go around in 30 seconds and make one introduction for me. And
Mm,
now, few things. One is I got an introduction out of it. Second, everybody else at that party is always tracking the host out of one of the corner of their eye. And they saw that the host walked me around the whole place. So now I have high status in that room. I can go up to anybody. And then the first question is, what are you doing here? Like, David's an old friend of mine. He wanted to introduce me to this person. So now, me coming in from nowhere, I'm the high status in the room. I got supported with social proof.
mm,
In a sales pitch, let's say you sell a Sharpie. Social proof for a Sharpie might be a review in the New York Times. Like, this is the best Sharpie ever. It's a black Sharpie. It's amazing. I can draw like, I don't know, like crazy letters on garbage cans with it. It's incredible. PR is a form of social proof. Social connectivity or knowing the host is a form of social proof. Social proof is also, you know, there's a lot of simpler for via versions of it. Your example earlier of your friends that I guess go around being yogis and taking photos in photo shoots in yoga studios. That photo is a form of social proof. I guess the old Neil Strauss example was he always had carry a camera with you with 10 interesting photos on you. This is before smartphones
mm-hmm.
and before Instagram. It always, so you can always tell someone a story, create a narrative, to have something where it looks like you're high status. You're like, I guess a yogi in a yogi studio or rented the studio or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So support with social proof. So we're back to three factors: separate the person from the present or get them into a dream state. If I want to be a more even positive framing, it's get someone into
Yeah.
a dream state. Then it's deliver a perceived value in which you have to figure out what they value in order for them to perceive it to be a value. Like, someone may not value money. You could be a billionaire. They don't care. Someone might be a yogi and they value the fact that you can teach them a new pose. They may be so curious to learn tantra and learn some of the sacred arts. That's what they value. Or someone might be, that's way too much for me. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go there. I don't trust myself to go into that place. Or my partner doesn't trust me. That's a more likely example. But they might not value, or they might value that. So you got to figure out what that person values at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday might have valued something different. Yesterday, someone just might have needed a glass of water. Today, they might need $1 million. I don't know. Then support with social proof. But the key with all of these things is you only need one thing. You don't need to get someone to a dream state for 4 hours. You don't need to change venues 9 times. You literally just need one question to get the person dreaming so that their guard is down and they can actually build trust. Because you need to get someone to a dream state in order for them to trust you, unless you started with social proof. And that's way hard to do. That's an advanced technique that requires either managing the whole room or actually having status to begin with. And I'm trying to teach you techniques that don't require you to be high status to begin with in order to actually utilize these. So
Mm-hmm.
separate the person into their dream state, deliver a perceived value, one point of value. So I used to always tell this example. Let's say someone doesn't have a shirt. You give them one shirt. What did you just do?
I
What did
gave
I?
them value.
Yes. Now I'm going to give you 9 shirts. What did you just do?
I over delivered, gave too much value.
No, you gave them a fucking burden.
Tell me a little bit about that. Why would that be a burden?
Because where are they going to put all the 9 shirts? They have to walk around all day in 9 shirts?
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
One point of perceived value. Separate the person, get someone to dream for 1 minute, deliver one point of perceived value, have one supportive social proof. Pick what it is. Everyone is capable of having some form of social proof. It could be a press story, or it could be a photo in a yoga studio. It could be anything. It could be the
Could be
host. I
a
mean,
wing.
that's
It could be a wingman. It could be a wing woman. Be
yes,
like, this person's awesome.
yes,
Hey, see you later. Thanks for this. Thanks for that. We did that to
yes.
one of our friends at the wedding too.
Yeah, so amazing. Yeah, bringing a wingman with you is so effective. It's so amazing. Always go in pairs or threes, whatever. It's really effective. That's the easy way to do it. And if you don't have someone with you that night, or that day you're at a new conference or event, you find one interesting thing about yourself that delivers social proof for it, and even if you need to do a little bit of a humble brag about it. But make sure it's something that the other person will find interesting and not piss them off.
Right. That's again another really good key point. Something that
Yeah.
they will find interesting.
Yeah. Like you might, you're in an environment where people are a business environment. And a lot of people are nervous with the current administration. You might know someone in the administration, and that's a valuable point to someone. So it accomplishes being a little bit of a status move, and it's adding value to someone because you're telling someone about what you think is going to happen based on firsthand experience. It's really valuable. Or it might
Mm-hmm.
be you're the tantra teacher leading a group or a session or whatnot. And you just bring it up. And that person is interested or curious. And you say, hey, we did this amazing thing. I can't say whose name, but there was a famous person always dresses like they're going to renting their own yoga studio for a photo shoot. Uh, and I blew their mind. So we can talk about it. I'm sure you would love to have an experience like that, wouldn't you? I didn't even say the name of the person. I just described them. And that is a
Mm-hmm.
form of social proof. And it's also a humble brag, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now we get to the final part. The final part is make an ask. You always need to make an ask. If you leave the environment without making an ask, it's not so good. One ask is, hey, can I follow up with you about this? What can I show you or talk
Hold on.
about?
Why what for those that are listening that have never heard this, why is it not good? Why
Oh, if you
why is it
don't,
important to make sure you don't miss the step of asking? Because a lot of people are afraid to even ask for what they want or what they desire. So
yeah,
this is a very powerful step for people here who are conditioned to not ask for too much or to not let people know that they need something or, like again, there's a perception
okay.
there. So why is that piece important?
So you always have to make the ask because otherwise you leave the person feeling uncomfortable on the other side.
Whoa. Really?
The other person's waiting for you to make an ask. The ask doesn't have to be give me $1 million for my startup. It doesn't need to be come home with me. It doesn't mean let me take you home to my mother. The ask can simply be, hey, it's fun to meet you. I'd love to stay in touch.
Mm. So
That's it.
they're waiting for an ask because they've had that relationship. You've built that relationship. You've got them into a dream state. You gave them value, right? You're in a place where now they're connected to you because there's proof behind like you as a
Yeah.
person or your work. So the last step is an ask, which would, if I'm hearing you correctly, which also really serves them. It's kind of less about you and more that serves them.
Bingo. Bingo. Now, there's a lot of nuances to this, right? But the simplest version of it is your ask serves them because you were so entertaining that they spent their time enjoying themselves around you. So you making the ask is validating them.
Woo, I love that. I love that. I haven't heard it in that way. I love that.
Well, so that was actually how we met. Right. You asked me to be on your podcast. I haven't done a lot of media in the last couple of years. I've done
That's
maybe three
right.
podcasts in 3 years. And this is a topic I haven't talked about, the underlying psychology of people, systems, and markets like this in many years. Because it wasn't a topic to bring up the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 4 years, suggesting how behavioral psychology works was a dirty word, and you would try to get someone to try to cancel you because they're trying to, for various reasons. I didn't talk about this. You brought it up. You're like, hey, why don't you be on my podcast? You made the ask. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I guess I can. And then I had to think about it. I don't know if I wanted to, but it was like flattered, and I like that you made the ask.
Oh,
So
that's great to know. Yeah. And again, I make the ask not as attachment, but as something where I'm like, oh, this would be awesome,
yes,
and again, it was for us, like awesome for us. And it felt good to ask.
yeah,
So a good way to highlight that in real time.
yeah. No, there's some advanced techniques on making the ask here, and it depends on what you're asking for and how you do it. Like one version of the ask is, "Hey, I'm working on something. I want you to get involved with it." So
Mm-hmm.
I basically it's a bit of an aggressive ask. So you have to have a rapport to do that. But I'm like, hey, David, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm working something really cool. I want to get you involved. They might be an investor, might be asking them for money, or it might be your friend to just help you with something. But you're making an ask, I want to get you involved in this. Hey, we've been looking at something to do together and talking about things for a decade. We didn't have alignment on things, but I got something now. I want to get you involved with it. Let's talk. I'm going to come by the office or you come to me. Let's grab dinner, drinks, whatever. Make the ask.
That's very direct. Yeah.
Always make a direct ask. Or you
Yeah.
can, oh, sorry. I recommend making a direct ask. It's the easiest way to do it. If you don't feel that rapport, like sometimes you don't feel that that person wants to complete that engagement forward, you can make an indirect ask, which is like, hey, what would be valuable to you to follow up with you on?
Mm,
And they could say nothing and say that's nice. Or say, hey, can I have your number in case I find something of value to you? I'll share it with you. Want to tell me what's of
mm,
value to you? I'll follow up with you. So if you don't feel that chemistry or rapport that you have, you can make a soft ask, which is like, I'm asking for the ability to follow up with you. If you don't feel like they have that rapport there, because you can at least open the door to the future. Um,
right.
Different flavors of this. The most powerful one is, I got something for you. Let's fucking do it. That's the most powerful ask. Or, you're looking to meet somebody and you got a party with a friend, you go up to someone there, and but you're about to leave there, you go over to the guy, girl, whatever, whoever, or they, whatever you want to do, and say, listen, you're interesting. I know you're single. I'm gonna take you. I want to take you out next week. Give me your number. I've seen a friend of mine. I've used this technique before. I've trained people on this technique, and I actually trained someone on this technique that used it on me 10 minutes later. It was a fascinating experience, and they picked me up. It was
Ah,
a It was really funny. A different story though, but it just works. Just make an ask, or the soft ask. If you're not sure, it's like, hey, can we exchange info and let me know what you want? I'll follow. If I find something of value to you, I will share something of value to you in the future. And you might work, it might not. Not every time you make an ask will there be follow through, but at
mm-hmm.
least the next time you see them, you have a shared experience, and you at least had that like engagement towards a possible next step, even if it wasn't perfect alignment. Also, it shows confidence you made the ask. And the next
Mm-hmm.
time you see them, you have status, even if they didn't follow up because you made the ask. They might
Mm,
try to shift, avoid eye contact with you. And then you can just go over and say, hey, David, yeah, listen, I know, yeah, listen, I tried to reach out to you about something. I guess it wasn't interesting to you, but I'm just glad I'm seeing you again tonight. And you get the elephant room off the table.
mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is the advanced technique here, and has to be used really carefully. Are you ready for the advanced technique?
I mean, of course I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So first of all, you just said yes. I got you to opt into the environment. That's that. Thank you. We just finished the advanced technique.
Yes, right. That's
Yeah.
it. That's a yes. Getting people to
Start with
say
yes.
yes.
Yes. Get someone to
Mm-hmm.
say yes. Like, hey, are you looking for new deals to do? Are you looking for meet interesting people? Would you coming out of this dinner tonight and find the most interesting person in the room be valuable to you? Let me introduce you to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can play with it. I'm starting with a yes. And then you can introduce the person to like, like a stuffed animal and just make a joke of it. You can do anything with it. Um, but the other thing is the other closing technique, and this has to be used really carefully and has to be used based on the environment, is sometimes you need to make the ask 3 times
Mm.
because, and sometimes people want to be chased a little bit. Not everybody, so you have to do it. But the old rule was, if you were trying to meet someone at a bar, if they and you want to get their phone number, as long as they don't walk out, ask them for their number 3 times. If they walk out and leave, you don't get to ask them 3 times. But if you're sitting next to someone and and you're still talking, like, hey, can I have your number? And say no, but they still keep talking. They're just waiting for you to chase them a little bit more.
I'd be curious to know what's that on the opposite side from the feminine's perspective, because for the most part, I'm not asking someone three times, especially if it's for like their phone number. I'll give an invitation. My feminine approach will be I will follow up. I will maybe send something that I think about would add value, right? But
Yeah,
for the feminine side, and I know a lot of women are listening, it's like they're not going to be like going
yeah.
up to someone and get their number and ask for this and this and this. But I want to highlight that this still can work right on the opposite side of the pole. So, what would that be like for the feminine experience?
Oh, it's different. So this is for a guy. In a male perspective, there's more subtlety to this. that are better for a different topic, but it's simply make the ask, and the ask can also be nonverbal.
Yes.
But the law, it just your body language needs to make an ask 3 times because some people want to be chased. And the flip side is if you're the girl, you just go for it. It's
Yeah, just
100%
ask.
nonverbal. Yeah.
Yeah, nonverbal. And I would say, and you can also ask in the sense if it's like, if it's a work thing, like for women, normally they don't ask for the pay raise or they don't ask
Yeah.
for the position or they don't directly ask,
Yeah.
their partner for what they want. So what you're saying, I just want to kind of create that intersection of what you're saying for those that might be listening. It's like, I'm not going to do that. It's like, but this also is applicable, right? Romantically, sensually, sexually in your
Yeah.
career as well. It's important for us to get comfortable asking for what we want, asking for a next
Yeah.
step. And then I liked what you said for the feminine, it's also being the embodied invitation of being a yes. So your languaging, your energy, your body languaging, your eyes, and being able to have the confidence. I'll use the opposite of like if a guy's looking at you at the bar, don't look away. Be willing to like look at him 3 times in the eye and
Yeah.
open your body language every single time so they can feel the yes from you.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just again, it's like that's why I'm careful how to frame it. You need to, if it's in a business setting, it's like, listen, I want to follow up with you. And then it might be a
Yes.
phone call. And if someone doesn't respond to your email, who cares? Call them,
Yeah.
text them, follow up at least 3 times. If they ignore
Mm-hmm.
you 3 times, they might actually be ignoring you. You might need to wait until they're open in the future. And just because
Mm-hmm.
someone wasn't open now doesn't mean a year later you run into them, not going to be open then.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a
That's a
lot of
really good
subtlety
point.
and nuance.
Yeah.
So that next time approach with confidence and start all over again. The whole thing with politicians, you can be run out of office in the most craziest stuff possible. As long as you disappear for a minute, you can come back and make a comeback. Doesn't matter what
So
you did.
so funny. Yeah. The people say that even on social media now where they're like disappear for a month and then come back as a new person and get people to, get people to be interested and wow people and show people, that there's something new there. And I think that it's both. I think there's some beauty of being there, but yeah, politicians will disappear and come back. But
Yeah,
for me, that doesn't necessarily build trust. I'd like to like feel the person, see the person through the transition of a relationship, which has its ebbs and flows. If I'm going to
yeah,
include them more deeper into like a long-term relational conversation or work project or dynamic. So again, what we are saying is everything is very nuanced. I mean, we've talked
yeah,
high level, we've talked kind of basic level in this conversation. So we know it's going to serve people on whatever level they are. And some people, this might be mind blowing and like they've never heard of any of this stuff, which I appreciate you taking the time to also deconstruct the way that it actually works with very clear questions and languaging and a framework that people can apply, whether it's in their business or whether it's in a relationship. But the key thing that I'm really hearing you say is being able to be authentic with what your asks are, be
yeah,
authentic with the way that you're asking them to dream and show up and use your own authenticity and be confident with like knowing you belong here, and being real with yourself so you can be real with others and not be afraid of rejection, to have the confidence to step up and not be afraid of rejection if that person says no the first time you make an offer in your business or you do your pitch for the first time and someone's like
yeah.
no. Like I just landed my TEDx talk and I've gone through almost 200 no's before I got my yes. But I'll tell you that first no was like, oh my gosh, right? It I could feel the little ting and the little ping, but it got so much easier and easier and easier with, that exposure therapy.
Exactly. And to some extent, sometimes we let things fester. Like you want to call somebody, even if they say no, you get it off your chest to have made the ask. It's like half the battle. It's like that one person you wanted to call to invite to invest in what you're doing, or to partner with you, or help you, or buy something. You just make the ask, even if they say no. So what?
Mm-hmm.
You made the ask. Maybe they say yes. Or you ask someone on a date. Maybe they say yes. Maybe they say no. Who cares? Or you ask someone just to go hang out for brunch, and maybe they dodge you. Maybe they say yes.
Mm-hmm.
They say no. You know, or they you know right now. You don't know what it'll be tomorrow. You just know right now.
Yeah. And,
So
and that goes back to the piece of the alignment, right? It's like it's trusting and not making it mean something about us that
yeah,
like it's not aligned and making it okay, not trying to force something or wish, that it was, that it was different about it. So I think that those are all some really great pieces that you've shared today in regards to the difference of how it can really work for us versus just work for myself, with these really powerful arts that you just shared, and how that really does, like, psychology is, I like that we're breaking it down besides just the mindset, because it's not just a mindset. Like, there really is psychology and the behavior behind it and the steps, as well as the self-awareness to be able to, like, observe and watch and create an experience for you with the other person that you're bringing in, right? Like, this is not just, reading a script or showing up. Like, there's energy dynamics that are at play. There's an awareness that's at play, right? There's emotionality that's going on and at play. There's someone else's heart, mind, and spirit on the other side of that you're taking into consideration, that's at play on all the levels that we've talked about in all those arenas.
Yeah, one final thought, which is Josephina, you are masterful at this exact process. And how it getting me on the show was going through for your listeners to watch how you went about getting a guest here. You got me to talk, you got me to dream, you got me to tell stories and create a narrative. Just at a dinner, I'm usually very quiet, and I don't always talk. I don't always share stories. I usually prefer to listen sometimes. Then delivered value, invited me on your show, and you supported a social proof by telling me it was one of the top shows out there. Also, that your original title was kicked off the internet, which is amazing. That's like extra social proof.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you come off with such an aura of pure confidence and like playful energy that you can then do that. And then you followed up with me also a few times.
I
So
did
all
follow up
these
with you.
techniques is how I ended up on this show. So for you listeners out there, it's really, you now have a real live example of how this whole thing played out. And this started out as a social environment at a wedding and a random event on a side of the water. And now ended up creating content for you out there so you can
Hmm.
experience it. And everything kind of crosses over between the social, the professional areas. So that's what I wanted to conclude and
Mm.
tie the whole example together step by step by step.
Thank you. And you just gave some more social proof there as well in that regard. But also, thanks for that. I really appreciate that. And it's also a good way for those that are listening on what you shared. You mentioned kind of masculine, but again, the feminine can do it in her own way as well to create the
Yeah.
outcomes and values that really serves, everyone else when we bring a playful energy to it, which
Yeah.
you also had. And that's why I said you were the most interesting person at that table, at the whole event, because we were playing in this dynamic of higher level conversation and energy, and it was fun. It was genuinely
Yeah.
fun. And I follow fun, I invite fun, and I think that always makes for a more enriching conversation, and a better world. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that and taking the time. And I'm glad that we were able to get on the call and find the right timing and the flexibility to, yeah, make it happen. And welcome you for your debut back out into the world again after, 4 years kind of a hiatus, that you said yes to being on the show and being so awesome and adding so much value to everyone. I know this will be really beneficial for those that, hear it. Thank you. So, you have any final thought on this topic? I like to call this kind of like the pearl of wisdom. If you were to drop one pearl of wisdom in someone's necklace string that they were creating, what would that signature Richie pearl be?
You belong where you are at the moment in time.
Mm. Mic drop. That's amazing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, make sure you can follow along with Richie. He's at Richie Hecker at X. His main platform is the X platform. And I'm going to actually have the team post the article that you did as well about the dinner party, because I read it. I thought it was super funny and fascinating. And it's a really good example. So we'll make sure to put that link in the show notes as well. So follow along. He's creating some awesome things. Obviously, he's got his own unabashed personality and voice, which is what I adore about him. And thanks so much for taking the time, Richie.
Thank you. I'll give you a virtual hug.
Yay. Ah, yay. Thank you. Until next time, talk to you soon, lovers and friends.